Behind every photo op was silence. Behind every handshake, undeniable tension. What did President HH really think of Edgar Lungu? The truth hidden behind closed doors is finally out, and it changes everything. Was it rivalry, politics, or something deeper? Behind every handshake was tension. The truth about President HH and Edgar Lungu's relationship will leave you speechless. Breaking. The truth behind President Hakainde Hichilema, HH, and former President Edgar Lungu's relationship. Many have speculated that the connection between President HH and Edgar Lungu was anything but friendly. Now, new revelations suggest deep-seated political tension, mistrust, and personal fallout behind closed doors. Was this just political rivalry, or something far more personal? Why did President HH's tone toward Lungu shift dramatically after the transition of power? What are Zambians saying online about the way HH handled Lungu's final years? Watch the full video for exclusive analysis, emotional reactions, and unseen moments that defined this controversial relationship. Subscribe for more bold, truth, trending political coverage, and African leadership updates. 1. What did President HH really think of Edgar Lungu? Was this just political rivalry, or something far more personal? Hakainde Hichilema's perspective on Edgar Lungu appears to be shaped by a mix of ideological opposition, political rivalry, and personal grievances stemming from their contentious history. As the leader of the United Party for National Development, UPND, HH consistently criticized Lungu's governance, particularly during Lungu's presidency from 2015 to 2021. HH accused Lungu of mismanaging Zambia's economy, fostering corruption, and undermining democratic institutions. For instance, in 2015, HH charged that Zambia faced economic challenges due to Lungu's failure to provide leadership, citing the kwacha's depreciation as evidence of poor governance. In a 2021 interview, HH highlighted Lungu's alleged authoritarian slide, economic collapse, and high-level corruption as reasons Zambians should vote for change. These public statements suggest a deep policy-based disagreement, framing Lungu as a leader whose tenure harmed Zambia. However, the rivalry transcended policy differences, taking on a personal dimension due to significant events. The most notable was HH's arrest and treason charge in April 2017, when Lungu's government accused him of endangering the president's life by not yielding to Lungu's motorcade. HH spent 4 months in a maximum security prison, an action widely condemned by international observers, including the US, EU, and Catholic bishops, who called Zambia a dictatorship under Lungu. This incident, along with other alleged harassments, like police firing live ammunition at a 2019 UPND rally where HH claimed Lungu tried to assassinate him, likely deepened personal animosity. HH's prison diary and public endorsements of it post-release indicate the emotional toll of these experiences, suggesting his view of Lungu was not just as a political opponent but as someone who abused power to target him personally. Despite this, HH's public rhetoric after his 2021 election victory showed restraint. In his acceptance speech, he extended an olive branch, saying Lungu would not face retribution or tear-gassing, signaling an intent to rise above personal vendettas. Yet, actions like the withdrawal of Lungu's retirement benefits and the sacking of judges who ruled in Lungu's favor suggest lingering resentment, possibly rooted in their personal history. The 2016 election, where HH believed Lungu rigged the results, further fueled distrust, as HH denounced it as a sham. Was it just political rivalry? While their competition for the presidency, facing off in 2015, 2016, and 2021, was a core driver, the personal stakes were high. Lungu's actions against HH, including imprisonment and alleged assassination attempts, and HH's subsequent moves to limit Lungu's political comeback, indicate a feud that blended ideological clashes with personal grudges. However, without private correspondence or direct admissions from HH, his innermost thoughts remain speculative. His public stance oscillates between statesmanlike calls for unity and actions that suggest a desire to neutralize Lungu's influence, reflecting both rivalry and personal history. 2. Why did President HH's tone toward Lungu shift dramatically after the transition of power? HH's tone toward Lungu shifted from conciliatory during the 2021 transition to increasingly adversarial, driven by political strategy, Lungu's post-presidency actions, and governance pressures. During the transition, HH adopted a magnanimous tone. In his August 2021 acceptance speech, he assured Lungu, "Don't worry, you'll be okay," promising no retribution, a stark contrast to the oppression HH faced under Lungu. This was likely a strategic move to reinforce Zambia's democratic credentials, project unity, and calm Lungu supporters amid a peaceful power transfer celebrated across Africa. Lungu's concession and commitment to a smooth transition further facilitated this tone, as HH praised the process. However, HH's tone hardened as Lungu returned to active politics in October 2023, leading the Patriotic Front, PF, and signaling a potential 2026 comeback. Lungu's public jogging, deemed political activism by police, and his claims of persecution, including alleged plans to arrest him, escalated tensions. HH's administration responded with measures like withdrawing Lungu's retirement benefits and barring his public activities, framing them as legal responses to Lungu's politicking. The sacking of 3 constitutional court judges who had ruled in Lungu's favor in 2016 and 2021 was perceived by critics as HH settling scores, though the presidency insisted it followed judicial misconduct findings. These actions suggest HH viewed Lungu's comeback as a threat to his reforms and political stability. Economic and social pressures also influenced the shift. HH inherited a struggling economy, with debt restructuring delays and a 2024 drought exacerbating public discontent. Lungu's popularity, despite his ineligibility for 2026, posed a risk, as his supporters chanted, "Alabwela Po, he will return." HH's efforts to block Lungu's candidacy via the Constitutional Court, which ruled Lungu ineligible in December 2024, reflect a strategic need to neutralize a charismatic rival who could galvanize opposition. Critics like political analyst Sishiwa call this a dangerous political game, suggesting HH's fear of Lungu's influence drove his harder stance. HH's 2023 denial of harassing Lungu indicates an attempt to maintain a public image of fairness, but ex-posts and commentary suggest his actions were seen as retaliatory. For example, HH's alleged statement at a rally about squeezing Lungu's neck if he continued his comeback fueled perceptions of personal animus. The shift, therefore, stemmed from Lungu's refusal to retire quietly, HH's need to consolidate power amid economic woes, and a history of personal grievances that resurfaced as political threats grew. 3. What are Zambians saying online about the way HH handled Lungu's final years? Online sentiments among Zambians, particularly on X, reveal a polarized view of HH's handling of Lungu's final years, especially following Lungu's death in June 2025. These sentiments range from accusations of persecution to defenses of HH's actions as necessary for democracy, reflecting Zambia's divided political landscape. Critical views. Many Zambians online accuse HH of vindicatively targeting Lungu, undermining his legacy, and contributing to his demise. A post by @WHenry96130 questions whether HH would grant Lungu a state funeral, citing the withdrawal of retirement benefits and restrictions on Lungu's medical travel to South Africa as evidence of persecution. The user suggests Lungu most likely died of persecutions rather than the diseases he had. Similarly, @Njabulo Kitsiko claims HH feared Lungu's 2026 comeback, preventing him from even jogging freely, implying a wicked agenda that led to Lungu's mistreatment. @Clementinalome references a rally where HH allegedly threatened to squeeze Lungu's neck, citing African Confidential to argue HH's hostility was overt. These posts frame HH as a vindictive leader who used state power to harass Lungu, with some linking Lungu's death to stress from these actions. Supportive views. Conversely, HH's supporters argue his actions were justified to protect Zambia's democracy and prevent Lungu's return, given his controversial tenure. @M_Mugium48570 acknowledges Lungu's harassment of HH during his presidency, including business blockages and labeling HH a devil worshipper, suggesting HH's measures were a response to past enmity. The user describes them as sworn enemies, implying HH's toughness was warranted. In a 2023 post, @NewsHawksLive quotes HH denying harassment claims, asserting critics were unfair and emphasizing his own past victimization under Lungu. Some online commentators, as noted in web sources, support HH's judicial sackings and Lungu's election ban as legal moves to curb misconduct and uphold constitutional limits, with the government calling the 2024 court ruling a safeguard for democracy. Mixed and analytical perspectives. Social commentator Laura Mitty, cited by the BBC, reflects a nuanced view, stating that while the sacked judges misbehaved spectacularly in 2016, HH's actions appeared as revenge, concerning informed Zambians. On X, some users express frustration with both leaders, with comments in older posts, e.g., 2016, showing exhaustion with their rivalry and its impact on Zambia. The Zambian Observer notes that Lungu supporters chant "Alabwela Po," indicating loyalty despite HH's efforts, While critics like Thandai Uketis and Goma argue HH's fear of Lungu's influence drove undemocratic moves. Polarization and context. The online discourse is deeply divided, with Lungu's PF supporters viewing HH as a dictator, while UPND backers see him as a reformer cleaning up Lungu's mess. X posts are inconclusive but highlight emotional intensity, with Lungu's death amplifying accusations of HH's cruelty. However, these lack verified evidence tying HH's actions directly to Lungu's health decline. The economic context, high living costs and drought, fuels criticism of HH, making Lungu a nostalgic figure for some, despite his own governance flaws. Analysis. Political rivalry or something far more personal. The relationship between Hakainde Hichilema, HH, and Edgar Lungu, two towering figures in Zambian politics, is a complex interplay of ideological differences, electoral battles, and deeply personal encounters that shaped their mutual animosity. Their rivalry dominated Zambia's political landscape, particularly from 2015 to 2021, when Lungu was president and HH was the main opposition leader. While their conflict was rooted in political competition, significant personal grievances, stemming from alleged abuses of power, imprisonment, and mutual distrust, elevated it beyond a mere contest for leadership. Below, I explore the political and personal dimensions, supported by evidence, to determine the nature of their feud. Political rivalry, ideological and electoral clashes at its core, the HH-Lungu dynamic was a fierce political rivalry, driven by their competition for Zambia's presidency and contrasting visions for the country. HH, as leader of the United Party for National Development, UPND, and Lungu, head of the Patriotic Front, PF, faced off in 3 elections: the 2015 by-election, the 2016 general election, and the 2021 general election. These contests were marked by intense political maneuvering and public rhetoric, with HH consistently critiquing Lungu's governance. Economic and governance critiques. HH positioned himself as a reformer, accusing Lungu of mismanaging Zambia's economy and fostering corruption. In 2015, HH publicly stated that Zambia faced economic challenges, such as the kwacha's depreciation, due to Lungu's failure to provide leadership. By 2021, HH campaigned on restoring the rule of law, ending economic collapse, and tackling high-level corruption, directly attributing these issues to Lungu's tenure. Web sources, such as articles from 2021, highlight HH's narrative that Lungu's policies led to debt default and economic hardship, resonating with voters frustrated by rising living costs. Electoral tensions. The 2016 election was particularly contentious, with HH denouncing the results as a sham, alleging electoral fraud by Lungu's PF. The Constitutional Court's dismissal of HH's petition to nullify Lungu's victory, citing procedural issues, deepened HH's distrust of state institutions under Lungu. This electoral dispute set the stage for their 2021 rematch, where HH's landslide victory, 59% to Lungu's 38%, reflected public discontent with Lungu's leadership. The political stakes were high, as Lungu's PF sought to maintain power, while HH's UPND aimed to end nearly 2 decades of opposition. Democratic concerns. HH accused Lungu of authoritarianism, pointing to actions like the closure of the Post newspaper in 2016 and restrictions on opposition rallies. These moves positioned Lungu as a threat to Zambia's democracy, a narrative HH leveraged to galvanize support. Lungu, in turn, portrayed HH as a divisive figure, with PF supporters labeling him a privatization thief due to his business background and alleged role in Zambia's 1990s privatization. This mutual vilification was typical of political rivalries, where each sought to discredit the other's legitimacy. The political dimension was undeniable. HH and Lungu were rivals competing for Zambia's highest office, representing different regions, ideologies, and voter bases. HH's UPND drew support from southern, western, and northwestern provinces, while Lungu's PF was strong in eastern and northern regions, amplifying tribal and regional tensions. However, the intensity of their conflict suggests it was not solely about policy or power. Personal grievances. A deeper animosity. While political rivalry provided the framework, personal grievances significantly escalated their conflict, making it far more than a typical contest. Several incidents under Lungu's presidency and HH's subsequent actions as president reveal a personal dimension rooted in perceived injustices and mutual hostility. HH's 2017 arrest and imprisonment. The most defining personal event was HH's arrest in April 2017 for treason, charged with endangering Lungu's life by allegedly blocking his motorcade. HH spent 4 months in a maximum security prison, an experience he documented in a prison diary, describing it as a period of humiliation and injustice. The international community, including the US, EU, and Zambia's Catholic bishops, condemned the arrest, with the latter calling Zambia a dictatorship under Lungu. HH's public endorsement of the diary post-release and his 2021 campaign references to this ordeal suggest it left a lasting personal scar. The arrest was widely seen as politically motivated, targeting HH as Lungu's main rival, but its brutality, HH was held in harsh conditions, likely made it deeply personal. Alleged assassination attempt. 2019 HH claimed that Lungu's forces attempted to assassinate him during a 2019 UPND rally in Seshik, where police fired live ammunition. In a 2021 interview, HH recounted this as evidence of Lungu's intent to eliminate him, stating, "They tried to take my life." While no definitive evidence confirms an assassination plot, the incident fueled HH's narrative of personal persecution, further straining their relationship. Lungu's post-presidency treatment. After HH's 2021 victory, his administration's actions against Lungu suggest personal undertones. The withdrawal of Lungu's retirement benefits, restrictions on his public activities, e.g., barring his political jogging in 2023, and the sacking of 3 constitutional court judges who ruled in Lungu's favor in 2016 and 2021 were perceived by critics as retaliatory. For instance, a 2023 web source notes that the judge's dismissal followed a commission's findings of misconduct, but Lungu supporters, as seen in X posts, called it HH settling scores. These moves indicate HH may have harbored resentment from his earlier treatment under Lungu. Mutual accusations. Lungu's PF labeled HH a devil worshipper and blocked his businesses, as noted in a 2023 X post by @m_mugium 48570, adding a personal layer to their political attacks. HH's alleged 2023 rally statement about squeezing Lungu's neck if he continued his political comeback, cited by @Clementin Alome referencing African Confidential, suggests HH's frustration was not purely strategic but emotionally charged. While such rhetoric could be political posturing, it hints at a personal edge. These incidents, imprisonment, alleged assassination attempts, and post-presidency measures, suggest a feud that transcended political competition. HH's prison experience and Lungu's perceived abuses of power created a reservoir of personal animosity, while HH's later actions as president indicate a desire to limit Lungu's influence, possibly driven by both strategic and personal motives. Public perceptions and contextual factors. Zambian public perceptions, as reflected in X posts and web commentary, highlight the blurred line between political and personal in the HH Lungu saga. The polarized nature of Zambian politics amplified their feud, with supporters of each leader interpreting events through partisan lenses. Lungu supporters, PF loyalists, particularly vocal after Lungu's death in June 2025, view HH's actions as vindictive. X posts like @WHenry96130's question whether HH would grant Lungu a state funeral, citing benefit withdrawals and medical travel restrictions, frame HH as personally targeting Lungu to the point of contributing to his demise. Njabulo Kitsiko's claim that HH prevented Lungu from jogging freely reflects a narrative of personal persecution, with some alleging HH's actions caused Lungu's health declined. HH's supporters. UPND backers argue HH's measures were justified responses to Lungu's past abuses. @m_mugium 48570's 3 post describes them as sworn enemies, noting Lungu's harassment of HH, including business blockages and religious slurs. Supporters see HH's actions, like the 2024 Constitutional Court ruling barring Lungu from the 2026 election, as protecting democracy, not personal revenge. Nuanced views. Social commentator Laura Mitty, cited by the BBC, acknowledges the sacked judge's misconduct but warns HH's actions appeared vengeful, concerning informed Zambians. The Zambian Observer notes Lungu's enduring popularity, with supporters chanting, "Alabuela Po, he will return," suggesting HH's moves were driven by fear of Lungu's charisma, blending political strategy with personal insecurity. The economic context, Zambia's debt crisis, 2024 drought, and high living costs, intensified public scrutiny of HH, making Lungu a nostalgic figure for some despite his governance flaws. This dynamic suggests HH's actions were partly a response to Lungu's political resilience, but the personal history of imprisonment and hostility likely shaped the intensity of his approach. Was it just political rivalry? While the HH-Lungu conflict began as a political rivalry, rooted in electoral competition and ideological differences, it evolved into something far more personal due to specific events and mutual actions. The political dimension was clear. They competed for Zambia's presidency, critiqued each other's governance, and mobilized regional and tribal bases. However, HH's 2017 imprisonment, the 2019 alleged assassination attempt, and Lungu's post-presidency treatment, benefit withdrawals, activity bans, and judicial sackings, point to a personal feud marked by distrust and retribution. HH's public restraint, like his 2021 promise of no retribution, contrasts with actions that Lungu supporters see as vindictive, suggesting a complex mix of strategic necessity and personal grievance. Without private correspondence or explicit admissions, HH's innermost thoughts remain speculative. However, the evidence, his prison ordeal, rhetoric about Lungu's abuses, and post-2021 measures, indicates personal animosity amplified their rivalry. Lungu's actions against HH during his presidency, and HH's response after taking power, suggest a relationship where political goals and personal grudges were intertwined, making it far more than just a contest for power.